Hey, good morning. How you doing? Welcome to Spring Piston Rifle Fever. Looks like I need to straighten out the camera a little bit. So I'm using the more quality side of my camera to try to get a little bit better video footage. And the last video I took was really kind of dim and almost blurry looking. I didn't like that very well. But if this is your first time checking out my video, or you have before and have never subscribed, I'd highly appreciate it if you would subscribe, because that greatly helps my channel. It puts the message out there that you are enjoying what you're seeing, because otherwise other people might not see it. Also, when you subscribe, you hit the bell to get notifications of my videos, and they have a new thing called the hype, and it's usually on the comment bar, like on my phone device at least. And you push that, and that gives algorithms to make this channel seen by more people. So today I want to share with you a video on hold sensitivity, or a blog. Excuse me, I'll call this like a blog spot. So I'm not writing, but I'm talking, and I'm sharing another airgun subject, which is really important to many air gunners, because a lot of people think that spring piston rifles are junk. They try a PCP and they find that they get better accuracy right away, but a lot of that's going to have to do with hold sensitivity and how you're shooting your spring piston rifle. And maybe you don't have a quality barrel, like a brake barrel that has so many things that are so important with it to be accurate. Number one, it has to have a good barrel. Number two, where the wedge or ball detent lock up, that needs to be tight. If you have a loose wedge, that's going to affect your accuracy also. So beyond that, this video is going to primarily be about the hold sensitivity. How hold sensitive is a spring piston air rifle? Spring piston air rifles are so hold sensitive, and I would call them the barbells of the airgun world. By a barbell, I mean it's building up skill. Say, for instance, you take an Olympic weightlifter who thinks he's going to perform very well by working on weightlifting machines, versus the other equally skilled Olympic weightlifter who trains primarily on barbells. So the guy who trains primarily on barbells, he's going to come out the winner in the end every time. And in fact, if he switches from a barbell to a machine, he will beat the other person that has just been training the machine. It's just the way it is. It's improved skill and learning. And there's so many things with hold sensitivity in a spring piston rifle, and I'm going to try to cover them and a few other topics on top of that. So I have a list here, otherwise I might forget what I'm trying to talk or communicate. So bag rested versus shooting off hand. So a shooting bag will more than likely change your point of impact. Say, for instance, you have a bag. We'll pretend my arm's the bag. Silly me. So that is going to affect how you shoot versus offhand. So if you sight it in on a bag, your spring piston rifle in a bag, and then you shoot off your hand, you're going to get different shot groups. I've seen so many YouTube videos where I see them resting on a bag or something really hard, and then I see them resting the barrel end here on a bag or on a bipod or whatever, and then they go back and forth. They do some shooting up here, then they hold it back here, then they hold it here. The shot groups are going to go all over the place. And I guess I'm kind of covering number two already, the forestock. Say, for instance, like on a musical instrument, like a guitar or a violin or cello or whatever, you see when they're playing their instrument, they're putting their fingers up and down because there's harmonics that are built into that musical instrument. Well, the spring piston rifle is like a musical instrument also. And in fact, some people find by holding on different areas of the stock that they can get better accuracy. Generally, For me, just holding in one spot that's natural every time, as long as I don't change that, I'm going to get a, if I do change it, I'm going to have a different shift. Say for instance, I sight my rifle in, for me, shooting on a bag with my hand on the bag, and then when I shoot, I find that when my son takes over and he shoots and he holds in a different area, the shot group shifts up or down, always, every time. So that's really important. So if you have a younger shooter that's going to be shooting your air rifle, make sure that they have it sighted in for them, because that's really important. Because like I said, wherever you hold on the stock, that's going to affect your point of impact. Okay, cheek weld. Cheek weld is very, very important. Some people I see place their face really hard on the cheek weld. If you do that and it doesn't affect your accuracy, fine. But personally, I find that a light cheek where I'm barely touching it, say for instance, just barely, I usually find that I have better accuracy doing that. I find that when I use a very light cheek weld, I seem to take more of me out of the rifle and let the rifle do its thing. And I don't find the crosshairs doing this number on my target. If you're doing this number on your target, that's something to think about and to try, is the cheek weld. It's really important. Once again, everything affects your shots. I mean, you could, for instance, when you're holding your rifle, if you place too much tension with your fingers on this side, that's going to affect it. If you squeeze too much on this side, that's going to affect it. So repeatability is the most important thing with your spring piston rifle. And generally, they don't like to be held too tight. Some rifles have a torsion when the spring goes forward, and you might need to squeeze a little tighter, like my Diana 34s. For the pistol grip area, I find that a firm handshake hold, while everything else is normal, I find I get better accuracy with that, with those rifles. I mean, considerably, where you might think that this rifle's junk type of thing when you're shooting it because you haven't tried different holds. And then all of a sudden you find out that, wow, if I hold tighter here, I get better accuracy. And it's night and day difference on my Dianas, especially my 22 caliber. Natural point of aim. So natural point of aim is going to go in with hold sensitivity, and that's not just spring piston rifles, that's all rifles. I was a rifle marksmanship instructor in the Marine Corps, and when people were shooting off to the side or their shot groups looked kind of cruddy, I would say, do you have a natural point of aim? And if they didn't know, I try to explain to them that you need to shift your hips. Say, for instance, you're aiming at your target in the distance. And so you think you're sighted in, then you close your eyes, you take a deep breath, you relax, let it out, you open your eyes, and you see where you're at on your target. Now, if you're left or right, you're going to need to shift your hips, left or right, just a little bit. Then you do the same thing. You proceed with the same drill again. You look through your scope or sights, take a breath, let it out, relax, open your eyes, and see where you're at on the target. When I was in the Marine Corps, we qualified with open sights. We didn't have no sissy scope. So, all right. Natural point of aim, trigger control. Trigger control is so huge. I've seen some foolish videos that say just jerk the trigger. I think you're going to find that it's not going to work very well for you. What you need to do is develop trigger control with your finger. And where you place your finger on your trigger is going to greatly affect where you shoot. For instance, if your fingertip is on the very tip, it's going to cause the pellet to go a certain direction. If it's in the middle, which I find generally to be best, that's going to make a more consistent shot. If you are over gripping, that's going to cause the pellet to pull. Low on the trigger, down here below, that's going to affect it. Up high is going to affect it. Strangely enough, I had a Walther Terrace that I gave to a friend, And I found that with that trigger, if I squeezed high on it, it produced the tightest shot groups. These are things you can experiment with and find out for yourself. And also, for instance, there's these triggers on these rifles affect hold sensitivity so much that I find that when I'm pulling the trigger and I come to that wall on a good trigger like this HW rifle, and I begin to squeeze, sometimes if I squeeze too fast, I'll jerk the shot. Or if I start to squeeze, because there's a tiny bit of travel in a few of them, and then I pull after that, it affects the group versus if I hit the wall and just slowly squeeze, if that makes any sense. I have found that shots will fly. Actually, I have some targets here, and you can look and see the flyers, and most of the time that has to do with how I was addressing the trigger. Some of it was maybe breathing or whatever. I mean, just sitting down and getting some good target practice in is so good. It's so important. And you can learn a lot from target practice. It's like getting a class of what's going on. You're not getting upset. You're just like, well, what's going on? And so this is like class right now. This is a class blog spot to help you be better with your spring piston rifles, whether it is a brake barrel or an under lever like this HW77. All right. Covered natural point of aim, trigger control, breath control. I believe I covered breath control. I hope I did. If I didn't, I'm going to cover it really quickly again. So I don't think I did. So breath control is when you breathe in and breathe out. Slowly breathe out. Sometimes it's really good to take a big breath. If you've been holding your breath for a long time, what you'll find is you'll put a lot of heartbeat into your rifle, and that's what you're going to be seeing. You're going to be seeing this action. That's not really good. What you want to see is more of a vertical thing. You're going to want to see the crosshairs or your sights going up and down through your target. And really what you want to do is when you're slowly breathing out, because I find that the rifle is most steady then. If I'm in a hunting situation, I will slow my breathing down and squeeze the trigger as long as it's on the rabbit's head or vitals. So that's really important, the breath control thing. When you want to get really accurate, you try to only hold your breath for a split second as soon as you're there, because if you hold your breath too long, you're going to get that heartbeat into your rifle again, and you're going to chase your target, and you're not going to have the accuracy you want. You might think your rifle's junk because of that. So I finally covered breath control, trigger control, canted. So this is really good if you can be with another shooter, or if a dad is teaching a son, is to stand directly behind them and watch them look through the rifle and try to pay attention if it's canted left or right, because if it's canted left or right, the shots are going to fly left, they're going to fly right, and the shooter might not know why and get upset. And then you can be like coaching them and saying, well, you know what, make sure that you're not canted. And you can do a self-check yourself. You can look through your sights, then you can go back a little bit, look. You can look at your rifle stock, get a really good idea what's going on. Some people have bubble levels on their scopes. I don't have that. I look through my crosshairs, and that helps me greatly. And also, while I'm thinking about that, while looking through your scope, and this is kind of slightly off topic maybe, but it's all about accuracy. And that is having your eye directly centered in the middle of your scope. So you're looking through your scope. You look through the middle of your scope, and then you look up, you look down, you look left and right. So to the best of your abilities, you place your eye directly dead center in the scope. So you can see, I'm not down here, I'm not here. Part of the scope isn't black on the edge. It's fully lit up. I'm already directly in the middle, and that's going to eliminate parallax air, which is super, super important. Otherwise, you're going to be chasing your shots all over the place. The temperature. I notice that the temperature can greatly affect where the pellets land, and I see it mostly usually with a big drop in temperature. Say, for instance, if I am out doing target practice in 70-degree, 60-degree weather, and then there's a cold snap, and I go out and it's 30 degrees out, the 20s, that will generally affect up and down. Usually you'll go down because the pellet's coming out just slightly slower. Even gas rams. Gas rams are even more affected by the temperature than a spring piston rifle. And from my friend, what he said, David, Air Guns with David, he said that PCPs are even more affected by the cold. And I fully believe that because my hat's in PCP died after I took it on a little hunting adventure in 20-degree temperature. It couldn't handle it. So the temperature can affect it. And strangely, I've noticed that, like in my HW30, the compression tube is smaller. And I noticed that that is affected even more by the temperature when it's cold out. Sometimes I'll get wild shot groups, so I'll keep on shooting. And then all of a sudden, everything will tighten up because inside of here is the piston. And when the piston goes home, it's generating a little heat. And little rifles like the HW30 need some shooting to warm up that cylinder. So that's one reason why I suggest that if you're going to go out hunting, that you do just a little bit of target practice before you go and shoot. I've found with like my HW95 and HW77 with these bigger compression tubes that there isn't hardly any difference. Almost every time I put a pill bottle out, something very small, I'm able to smack it every time, long as the scope didn't get bumped around. That's really important. The wind. This isn't really hold sensitivity, but once again, you need to consider the wind. You need to do some practice shooting in the wind. If you're just shooting at a range that's protected from the wind, you're not really going to know. You need to have some wind, especially for hunting conditions. I was out shooting this HW77 with my son the other day. We had a can up on a post about 40 yards, and when I aimed directly at it, I was missing, and the wind was a crosswind. So I aimed just to the right of the can, and I started hitting it every time. The wind actually shifted the pellet probably about an inch or so. So that was really important. Another subject that I want to cover is a lot of people get these spring piston rifles, and this goes beyond hold sensitivity, but they buy them. They might get a Walmart brand or something like, not Walmart doesn't have a brand, but they might buy a cheap air rifle, and it could be accurate, but they buy something like these Crossman pointed pellets. And I have never had a rifle that shot those pointed pellets accurately. They go all over the place. Not a good pellet, or they're wad cutters. But one pellet that from Crossman that did do really good, almost always in all of my air rifles, are these hollow points. They're not perfect, but they've done really good in a lot of rifles. The H&M Field Target Trophy pellet, that's done extremely good in a lot of my rifles, and a lot of them, they're the best in 22 and 177. Then you got the Air Arms pellets, or JSB. A lot of people like them, and these group really good in a lot of my rifles also. They're I think they're way overpriced and way overrated, but they do good in a lot of my rifles also. The RWS Superdomes, I found them to be very accurate. The Norma Golden Trophy and the 9.1 and the 8.4, I found those to be extremely accurate also. So those are some things to consider, and I wanted to cover this topic on hold sensitivity. And actually, my friend from David, Air Guns with David, he had brought up that question: what do you consider hold sensitivity in your air rifle? Well, you know what? Every way you shoot it affects the whole sensitivity on it. Like I said, it's like a musical instrument. It has harmonics in it. So anyway, I hope that you have gotten something out of this video. And like I said, if you haven't subscribed, I'd highly appreciate a subscribe, a like, a ring the bell so you get notifications, and hit that hype bar. I'd highly appreciate that. And God bless all of you, and you have an awesome weekend.